everybody. Welcome back to the Be That Lawyer with Fretzin podcast. Hope you're having a lovely day. We are here to rock and roll and helping you to be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. I could, jump in with some, banter and all that, but I think I just want to get to the meat and potatoes of what you're here for today, which is to hear from an amazing guest, which I have for you. And Dan, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure, my pleasure. And we love to start off with the quote of the show, and I always love when it's one that I haven't heard before. I mean, there's a bunch that at this point I've been asking this question for like let's say 200 plus episodes, so I'm starting to like see repetitive quotes. But this is a new one, and I loved it as soon as I read it. Learn everything you can about your instruments, and then forget it all and just play. The famous John Coltrane there. So welcome to the show, and tell us why you submitted that quote and what that sort of means to you.
Well, it's almost the idea is you have to have a core confidence, you have a competence, and you have to know your subject matter well. But sometimes it's almost like hitting a golf ball. There's a lot of things that can go wrong if you're thinking too much about each step along the way. You really can't integrate it in that 1 second of
Yeah.
swinging. So I think it's the same thing, with any profession. Know it well, have it sort of deep embedded into your brain and your psyche, and then just be yourself and it'll come out.
Yeah.
That's how I view it anyway.
I definitely get that in golf. Like so remember, you got to swing out, you got to don't move your hands, like all these different things that
Yeah,
I have to think in my head,
yeah,
and then it never goes well. It's like when
yeah,
I think that's why they people like to drink on the golf
yeah.
course,
Yeah,
right? Just
probably
melt all those thoughts away and just let
does.
your muscle memory take over.
So I have a different approach on the golf course. What I do is I play music, and I actually think people like hearing. I know I don't blare it. It's not
Yeah.
something so you cause somebody. I can't concentrate, but it's kind of nice to have something in the background. It's sort of a little bit of white noise and
Yeah, I
relax
like that
you. And
too. So
yeah,
alcohol, music, golf, you guys are getting some tips before we even talk about business development,
yeah,
which is
exactly.
always nice. Well, listen, man, thanks for coming on. Dan Scola, everybody, is the managing partner of Hoffman and Barron. Give us a little bit of your Reader's Digest version, short version of your background.
Yeah, well, I started, to be an IP attorney and particularly be able to do a patent law. You have to have a science background because you got to take a separate patent bar, and lots of people do know this, but for those of you who don't, you pass the patent bar in addition to the state bars. Okay, so I did that early on, largely because I was inspired by two things. One was my dad, who was a scientist, came up with an amazing sets of inventions early on, one of which he lost when he went to peddle it to a company,
Mm.
and all of a sudden his notebook records were stolen. And I was at a stage then saying, well, you really should do something about that. They came out, this company, with products that were based on those, and my father really didn't have the wherewithal or the money to go after them. So I thought there's got to be a way of doing this. And my mother said, well, there is a way. So she was the one you should go into patent law. And I had no indication that patent law was on on my radar at all. But I thought to myself, well, it could be interesting, but it's probably just very boring. And the truth of the matter is, it's one of the more creative areas I could have gone into, because my background is sort of some science and some creative stuff. I was very creative, as a musician and so forth. And so when I was younger, wanted to go to music school. My dad said, no, you'll make enough money going to music school. Go into science and do that as an avocation. I said, okay, let me try that. So that's how I got to be in the field. And then I got corporate jobs that paid for my education early on, because I could work, sort of in between, be liaison between the science people and the legal people. And I did an unusual thing. I went from being an in-house counsel with 13 years of experience for two large major companies to going outside.
Mm.
And that's not usually what happens, because usually you get your training, as an associate in an outside firm, at outside counsel. And then you say, I don't know how to develop business, or I don't want to work for, the set of partners, and I'm not on a partnership track. Let me go inside. Sometimes that's the route. So you go inside, and then how to do the work. And usually you don't get hired inside unless you know how to do the work, because they don't like to train. But I happen to be very lucky where they had a training program. They designed it for me, which was very unusual. And then when after 13 years, I decided to take the outside route. It was an offer by the firm I'm currently with. And I said, well, it's a great offer, but I know nothing about developing business. I can do the work. I'm not, I'm well equipped to do that. But what does it take to get clients? I have never done that. And at, my mentor, he said to me, and he was the prior managing partner of the firm. He said to me, "You'll figure it out." And I said, okay. So here I am sitting in my
Single
house.
best answer I've ever heard.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. I'm sitting in, this is a Monday morning. I had just turned down two corporate offers, one to be a head of a pharmaceutical group at J&J. The other was to be a head of a group at what was then called Sandoz. It's of course changed its name now. But I had those jobs in my pocket, and I called up J&J and said, I decided, and this is based on one lunch 2 days before with Hoffman and Barron's managing partner, Ron Barron. I said to J&J, I decided I think I'm going to turn the job down. He goes, what do you mean? You're reporting to us in the morning. I said, here's what happened, transpired over the weekend. And he said, you're crazy. He said, that's insane. Well, fast forward, the first 2 weeks that I was on my own, I had only a phone and I had FedEx. That's it, because computers were not, even around then. This was the early 90s. And I would write things out, FedEx, go travel, several times a week to the office to get the whole business going and so forth. And then I said, you know what, I need a road trip. I took a road trip for 2 weeks and I brought in two of the largest clients in the firm within the first 2 weeks. Because I knew them, they were on the other side of things I had done with corporation work, inside counsel work. And I knew these people well enough. And I went to the GC, and the GC then would walk me down to the patent department. Now, when the GC walks you down to the head of the patent department and suggests, here is a really good attorney that I'd like you to meet. It's hard for that IP head to say, yeah, I don't really want to use them.
I'm busy right now.
It's just a little bit of, it's the right tone of pressure, the right amount of pressure. And so, but we got along. Otherwise, look, so much of this I have found in trying to develop business is about having a high enough EQ. I know that's an overused term, but being able to read the tea leaves, read the people, and sometimes their needs are not as apparent if you can't read them well. But if you read them well, oftentimes you can sense what's behind what they're saying and them as a person and some of their concerns, and you'll say, well, this person's a very aggressive person, a very reticent person. And then you integrate that into what you did, the research you did about the business. Like that's what I did that day with that IP guy.
Yeah.
He was very, he's a cut and dry kind of guy, but he has a sense of humor if you get to a certain point. And I knew what his concerns were, so I just asked him the right questions.
But I want to stop you on that point though, Dan, because what I think lawyers believe needs to happen is a pitch, a sales job. This is why our firm's so great. This is why I'm so great. This is what we do. And I think what you're getting to is at the heart of it, which is in my philosophy as well, which is it's really about understanding people and asking questions, and not just surface questions. Here's our problem. It's going deeper than that, right? So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I've got actually a specific example very recently just happened with an associate of mine. So, somebody can say the same words and you can get a different meaning from that, like when you're listening to them. And it's very funny. They can be very, very different, like diametrically opposed, right? Meanings. So, the personalities of people and knowing where they fit in the organization and spending some time with them, you find out a lot. You find out that maybe they have certain stresses in their lives, and that does affect how they view other things. You don't have to pry to get that information. They'll tell you if they trust you enough. So the relationship, and it's hard to do it unless you're in person. That there's something about, everybody says, yeah, that's always the best way, but do they do it? Do they actually take the time and sit with someone for a lunch? Early on, I used to just say, look, I'm going to be in the area. Can I come by and just, 5 minutes of your time or whatever, just say hello. I wanted to have, drop something off with you that I thought you'd be interested in. Just to be able to shake a hand is good. And then you can, gradually get there. But I would say, I have two other meetings in that area, and I'd love to find some time if we could, just to, I would call people cold if I had to,
Yeah.
and just tell them. Now it's hard to get through now.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
mean,
different,
I think the cold outreach, it still works. There's people that would agree with that 100%. My philosophy is really about leveraging existing relationships,
yeah,
inside connections, things that are gonna, like when you walked, like when the GC walked you in to meet the IP, like
yeah.
it's like inherently set up that this is going to be accepted versus it being
I
like a
mean,
cold call.
you're already past, a level of scrutiny if someone at the very top says, hey, this is
Yeah.
a really good person. Why don't you guys get to know each other? So this specific instance recently that happened was one of my associates was in a panic. Oh my gosh, we do an international practice in IP. So we deal with lots of attorneys around the world. And in this one country, Libya, it's got an unstable government, right? So lots of things are unstable, including all the IP areas of law. The patent office is there, unstable. Sometimes the law firms you're dealing with are not that stable. They don't communicate well. But we had something that looked like it could be a disaster. So the associate said to me, oh my God, the associate didn't do what we asked him to do, and the client's going to be really mad, and this is a really important client. I said, okay, well, what makes you think that the client's going to be so bad? I mean, you did everything you were asked to do. You did it well, and you didn't get the right result on the other end, but that is really not all your fault. Maybe they'll say it's some of ours because we chose that firm, but it's not your fault. But she said, oh, no, no. Listen to this voicemail. Now, I wasn't even around. I was at the time at a wedding. It was morning of a wedding, so I happened to be up in Maine, and I took the call because it's important. So I said, "Okay, show me the voicemail." I listened to the voicemail, and she said, "It's like no other voicemail I ever heard from this guy before. I think he's really upset, and I'm worried about losing the client." And I said to the associate, I said, "I didn't get that at all out of that voicemail. What I got is the concern that he has about how is he going to communicate this to his people at the top, the people, the marketing people, the general counsel, the people that have asked him to do this. How does he communicate that effectively?
Hmm.
That's what you have to do. He's not upset at you. He's stressed about how he communicates it up the chain.
Right. Yeah.
That's all it was. It wasn't like, oh, you're going to get fired. So we called him up. The first thing I said to him is, and I knew this guy not extremely well, but I said, I'm calling, I'm at a wedding because I wanted him to know the importance of the call, that I
Yeah.
was calling. I was taking that time. It's an amazing day out here, blah, blah. He goes, oh, it's great where I am. I said, are you in New Jersey? He said, no, I'm in North Carolina. And so he goes, when did you move there? He goes, oh, just a few weeks ago. I said, great place, really beautiful. So we started a little bit of the, small talk,
Yeah. A little relationship building.
relationship building.
Yeah.
And then instead of saying, look, I'm sorry about, this whole instance, because if I were inside counsel, think about what you would hear, you'd want to hear. How would you take something like that? So I said this: Libya is such a crazy place. How unstable is everything there? Can you believe what's happening there? And he goes, I know, right? So already we're on the same page about, the country has, some stability issues, and who knows what could happen. Okay. So he's feeling comfortable that we are on the same page there. And now he gets, you know, yeah, what do you think we can do? And I said, well, there's a way we can get out of this. It's, you know, and it's not, you know, it's all legitimate. There's just another route. And he goes, oh, I could sell that. And see, that's exactly what he wanted.
Yeah, yeah.
But the associate didn't pick it up. Now, it could be from experience.
Right.
She was not as experienced, but you got to be able to read it. And
Yeah.
and that was a phone call,
Right.
voicemail that you read.
So it sounds like you've picked up, you know, even though he said figure it out, and we laughed about that, but it seems like you did. I mean, did you go through any coaching training, or did you literally figure this out on your own, how to develop business and build a book?
You know, no training at all. I just sort of figured it out.
Okay.
Look,
So he wasn't wrong. We
he
laughed about it a
was.
minute ago, but he wasn't
No,
wrong. You said figure it out. You're like,
actually,
okay.
I never actually said to him, you know, you were correct. But my partners used to kid me because I used to travel a fair amount, less now, but quite a bit. And they would say, you should go on a trip. And I would say, just get on a plane and go somewhere. It doesn't matter where you go, because you always seem to bring back a client every time you go somewhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not what intentional. I just, you know, I meet people, I talk to people, and, you know, they tell me lots of things and I suggest some things. The other thing I think is good for business development is giving something away.
Mm.
You know,
I think that's a missing piece, Dan. I think a lot of people go out and try to develop business, try to develop networks, and they don't recognize the importance of giving first and helping out first and developing a relationship through those means. And they wonder like, why am I not getting business? I'm having all these lunches or I'm doing all these meetings. They didn't put the two and two together on that.
yeah, it is, I think, an important factor. You know, doing a little research, finding out what their needs are, and then asking them questions where you can give them examples of how you figured out the same issue with another client that was successful. Those are big things you can integrate that, or you say to them, hey, you know, is such and such important to you guys? I have a client that seems to be all they focus on these days. Yeah, it is, as a matter of fact, and here's how that plays out. And then you say, yeah, it's kind of interesting. You know what I tried with this client that worked really well is boom, and you tell them, and it's just telling stories about what you did and how and sometimes you say, you know what we learned from that approach doesn't work as well as this approach.
Mm.
And I often say to them, you know, you should tell your attorneys to check out this. And that's actually you're giving them direction without, and that's a giveaway. So they'll say to their attorneys, hey, and if their attorneys now are you know, sort of defensive about it, the client's going to read that. And if they say, if the client, the attorneys say, oh, that's a really good idea, then the client is like, how come my attorneys didn't think of that? They think it's a good idea, but they didn't think. So it's a no lose as far as I can see.
Yeah. I've got a question for you. I had a great attorney on a few weeks ago who we hit this up. I want to hit you up and get your take. So there's a lot of attorneys at the small firm mid-market level that feel that they can't go after the bigger companies because they want to have the big name firm attached to them. They're paying way over what they should pay for certain services because the name is, you know, that no one ever
Yeah.
got fired for hiring XYZ, right?
Yeah, they
And I
hide
want to,
behind.
I want you to
Yeah.
either dispel that or maybe talk a little bit about how lawyers should be thinking about approaching GCs at bigger companies that are working with the big name firms.
Yeah, I mean, I I I have that situation a lot as well. We all do, right? Um, so one thing you can say is who's doing the work in the big name for
Mm,
you? Usually it's pushed down to a low level, even when it's a great account. I have a situation right now. I was working on this morning and had discussions with this, was introduced to this person, this company on Friday. That's Friday. I'm trying to get a package out to him that he asked for. And it was a big firm that was doing the work. and he's not getting anywhere. So I tried to figure out, and I did ultimately figure out where I could go to find out the firm that did the work and the actual work, because it was work for patent office. So what I did and that's a big firm you can hide, or hide behind. Look, when I was inside counsel, I had big firms working for me too, but I also had small firms, because I think the service, you got to sell your service point. Core competency has to be there. But if you just say I can do it for a cheaper price, not going to work always. It's not enough.
Yeah.
You got to emphasize we're going to have an experienced person that's part of the service to it, not someone that's down to the very bottom first year, and then 3 other people are going to look at it. You're going to work with an experienced person, and they're going to do the work, and it's going to be at a quality that is the same, but most likely better than the large firm, because they're not using it's too expensive to use the top partners. Even the bottom guys, or the lower associates with experience, even they're expensive. So I think they'll hide behind it because inside counsel doesn't want to make a mistake.
Right.
It's work for them to give you work.
Right.
They
But
have to, yeah.
But a lot of that has to do with when you get in the door to have that conversation. I think that one of the bigger challenges might be how to actually get an appointment with a GC that is working with a big firm, and you want to have a shot at that business. Do you have
Yeah.
a thought about how to do that?
Yeah. I mean, well, for me, I'm in the process of trying to do that in a couple of stages right now. One client was purchased, and that business now is the big company's business.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives me at least an opportunity to say, listen, I've done the work before. If you haven't done the work before, it's much more difficult, because you need to have a contact to get in.
Yeah.
If without somebody in the contact, that's why you go to meetings and you try to meet people the best you can. That's why if you're in the area, you connect with someone in the department who could. It doesn't, even if somebody is a family friend that knows somebody, if there's a connection somewhere you can draw, just because there's some, the referral chain, I know it weakens as it gets down the line, but it's better than nothing. So
Yeah.
any type of connection, use it.
Yeah.
That's how.
And I here's one that most lawyers are afraid of. It's the client connection. So I have a client, I'm a lawyer, I have a client that is a GC at a sizable company.
Yeah.
Does that GC know other GCs at other companies that they've worked under or over the last 5
Right.
years that they still have a relationship with? And if you're doing great work and you have that conversation and they think you're great, would they be willing and open to forwarding, that introduction and saying, look, I know you're with, ABC firm, or you're with, I'm sure you're already, got law firms surrounding you, but
Yeah.
like to your point, this is an exceptional lawyer, an exceptional firm. I think you'd be remiss not to spend a few minutes with them.
You'd want to have this firm on your side rather than against you.
I like
That's
that.
a really good.
Yeah, write that down, everybody. That was a good one. Say that one more time.
Yeah, you'd rather have this firm on your side than
And
against you.
against you. I love
Yeah.
that. Wow.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
Really good. Well, that's so helpful, because I think there's a lot of fear that lawyers have about going after bigger organizations and going after GCs. And it's because they don't have a strategy, or they don't have a contact, or they're not leveraging the relationships they've developed the way that I think you're doing.
And service is the key for them too, because I just looked at something today that this other firm had done, and it's not that they were incompetent. It's not. I mean, it was a competent job, but the approach wasn't aggressive enough. And why wasn't it aggressive enough? Because they had someone who was too far down in the chain that was not going to take that risk. And so you got to be willing to take risks. Can't oversell yourself in what you can do. But I find the approach of trying to say, oh, I can do this X, Y, and Z, so I'm really great at doing this. That's too salesy, and everybody takes that approach. I don't do
Yeah.
that at all.
Okay.
I just don't find it's in fact, if anything, I sort of soft pedal the credential area and I
Yeah.
let the people ask questions and then I answer them in a way which tells them there's competency behind it.
You know, the thing that I want to pull out too is you have experience on both sides. You have experience on the private side and you have experience on the
Yeah.
in-house side. And sometimes it's good to think about it from the inside lawyer's perspective. So you're in-house and you're getting hit up by lawyers that want your business. What approach would be comfortable for you to take a meeting? Doesn't have to, you don't have to do business with that lawyer, but to take the meeting, that's half the battle. So how would
Yeah.
you, how do you look at it from both sides or from the inside?
Um, if I were inside counsel, and I was at one time, one of my responses was these people actually have looked at some of the things that are important to us already. And they're saying, I see you're doing this why, and we have some approaches that, we'd like you to consider. They're a little bit different than the way you've been going. And that's going to be my sale to this company that I'm looking to get I just had a conversation with on Friday. I looked at what their attorney, it was competent work, but it's not direct. I wouldn't have gone this direct. I would have been
Mm-hmm.
more aggressive. I wouldn't have given up all this. They just had a very long, protracted thing, which didn't, in my view, would mine have gone the same way? I don't know for sure. I don't think so.
Yeah,
And so you try to say, look, I've looked at what people have done for you, if you can, because some of it's confidential.
sure.
But that's one approach. And then selling things that, we work for other large companies like yours. And one of the things these companies really liked was when they call, I always pick up the phone.
Yeah,
They'll always get me. And, that's really important I'm your main contact. You
right.
call me and then it's crazy because they call you,
watch
you
watch out what
know.
you watch out what you hope
Yeah.
for, right? Or
Oh,
what you ask for.
absolutely. I mean, they'll call you at any time at night
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
But
Well,
that's part of the business.
well, in the we'll kind of wrap things up with people say, hey, that if you do that, then where's the work-life balance? And I think I heard the term work-life harmony because the balance may be something you may
Yeah.
never have, but if you could have harmony between your work and your life. So I'm at in the middle of a dinner and my phone goes off, I'm probably not going to pick it up. I'm just not. It's the middle of a dinner with my
Right.
family. Okay, but
Yeah.
as soon as that dinner's over and I leave, I'm in my car and I call that client back right away and say, "Hey, sorry, I was at dinner. What's up?" That's again, we're not doing heart surgery here. There's nothing that's
Yeah.
that an hour can't in
Yeah.
many cases. In some cases, it's like I get it. There's labor and employment and things where things with you know where it could be that momentary situation where you still want someone picking up the phone for you then. Um, but anyway, that's kind of my thought is like just to have that harmony is where I think things are leading because the balance of I'm not working this week or this thing that's for some people they can pull it off for others less so.
Yeah, but it's difficult to take that cut and dry approach now because of everything is
Everything,
on your
yeah,
phone.
yeah,
It's a computer. So what I oftentimes I will do, like if I'm at a Zoom meeting and somebody is calling me, I'll text them back saying at a Zoom, get back to you as soon as I get off or very soon they're saying.
yeah,
But also people just want hand holding.
yeah,
A lot of times that's all it is. Do I really have a situation? Can you tell me whether, and you go, and it's a 2-minute conversation,
yeah,
but that's builds the relationship.
yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, this is all great stuff. You guys are listening. Again, we're getting like tips from the rainmakers at the top that are doing it every day. Of course, we can't keep talking forever. Although I know we probably could. We got to wrap it up with our game changing book. This one I've never heard of. The Power of Bad. What's the power of bad?
Yeah, I found this book very interesting because it's basically about the negativity bias that is almost inherent in everybody. If I say to you, hey, you did a fantastic job on this, but
Hmm.
the only thing you're going to remember is the but.
Yeah.
Because the negativity bias is so, I mean, by the way, it's the only way you improve if you hear a but. So now you have to, and this is a balanced situation. So when you give something negative to someone, that you want them to impact them, and I mean negative, it's just maybe here's a point of improvement, but you also you don't want to leave on that note. You want to go back to the
Yeah.
positive thing again, so that because the negative, the book says for every one negative impact, it takes about four positive impacts of similar pressure
Yeah.
to equalize it out.
Yeah.
So, you know, you give a review, you better say the positive at the very end again. But
Yeah.
don't forget the little bit negative, but don't, because it's the bias is so, you only focus on the negative.
Well, but we go back to what you said at the beginning, which is it's more about how we say things than what we say. And you can remove the word but. You're doing a great job. I also want to mention to you, and then you can put the observation in that type of format. And then, but look, I think you're great. You're doing wonderful work. Things are going great.
Right.
Just if, just tweak that one thing. It's
Well,
not
I've
so
noticed
harsh.
it's not. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's harshness, and then like I've noticed you've taken this approach. You begin to take this approach. That's really perfectly the
Mm-hmm.
direction you need to go, and that's where you got to go. That'll really work well for you. So now you're giving them a little positive and a little bit of negative. They're like, well, I'm glad I changed my approach. I better continue doing that.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So
Great stuff. Great stuff. Hey, everybody. As we wrap up, want to thank our sponsors, rankings.io, getting your website, your lead gen, all that stuff to your door. And of course, I want to just mention sales free selling, the methodology that I've been teaching for 20 plus years. If you'd like to audit a class and just come on a Tuesday morning to sit in and meet my clients and sit in on one of my classes, I'm now offering one class free audit. There's no obligation. It's just an opportunity for you to come and see what I'm doing every day for my clients and talk it through. And that's kind of just email me at steve@fretzin.com to just say, hey, I'd like to take you up on that, and we'll schedule some time. Dan, if people want to get in touch with you and they want to network with you, they want to throw all their work away from the big firms to you, what are the best ways for them to reach you?
well, there's an easy way. Just go to the website, which is HB as in baby, HBIPLAW law.com. So
Yeah,
stands for Hoffman and Barron law.com. So
fantastic,
yeah,
fantastic. All right,
terrific.
you don't mind not having your name on the door, huh?
There was such a good reputation. I
Yeah,
decided to keep it.
yeah.
And I only became managing partner about 6, 7 years ago.
Okay.
So I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
To
and
me, it's
that
not
that that
about.
that warms my heart when when people can take the ego out of it and just say, look, this is the brand, it's great. I'm a part of this team. It's I'm just because if my name's Johnson and I'm working at Nike doesn't mean they got to change the name from Nike to Johnson, right? So
Exactly. I mean, when they work with you, they'll know what you're about.
there you
That's how.
go.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for hanging out with me for half an hour and sharing your wisdom. I know everyone listening enjoyed it as much as I did. So, and you and I got to keep in touch, okay?
Yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, I'd like to
Awesome.
do that. All
Cool.
right.
And
Thanks so
thank
much.
you. And oh, hey, don't leave yet. Thank you everybody for spending time with Dan and I today on the Be That Lawyer with Fretzin podcast. Every single week, twice a week, here to help you be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. Take care, everybody. Be safe, be well. We'll talk again soon.